So we're looking at iconic moments for the Clippers, and I think we can both agree, thank anything, higher power that gave us the Lob City Clippers, because without them, I think the Clippers would be the worst franchise to pick for. Obviously, a era where they all of a sudden, overshadowed the Lakers, kind of sync that up really well with the Lakers decline. Clippers became, I guess, the talk of the LA town. You had DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin catching lobs off Chris Paul. And then you just had a real interesting cast of characters who joined the Clippers. They definitely had that allure where big names from other teams and championship rosters just ended up there. Paul Pierce played there, Matt Barnes, Glenn Davis, JJ Redick, Jamal Crawford. They had rosters and they were just never able to get over the hump. There's some really interesting deep dives on why they struggled, injuries, bad luck, choking, whatever you want to frame it. But it did give us some iconic moments, such as the Mozgov poster. And it had been, I think, a while since we had a player who was posterizing other players, defenders on a regular basis. I know Sean Kemp had a couple of really strong dunks. I know LeBron's had a couple of strong dunks, but Blake Griffin, I think, almost took over that mantle and was known as like the king of posters for a good period of time there. So, you know, he had the one over Pau Gasol, he jumped over a Kia, and he has this one over Mozgov, which is just insane. I mean, Kendrick Perkins also copped one as well. Um, just real. I remember this as a teenager. This was just like insane. It was just you wanted to play with him on 2K all the time. You wanted to posterize everyone. You went out in the backyard with your 7 foot ring and you tried to replicate this. This is an iconic moment not only for the Clippers but for my life.
I love that. I love that backstory, man. I never knew you wanted to be Blake Griffin, but I must admit I never felt like I wanted to be Blake Griffin. But he had some nice dunks. Don't get me wrong. This was a nice dunk. I can make an argument here that perhaps the greatest dunk in the Lob City era was not a Blake Griffin dunk. How about the lob for DeAndre Jordan over Brandon Knight? Yeah, that one there, and that one's I like that one because it's there's some level of irony, right? Like Brandon Knight's like 6'1" or something. This 7 foot guy is trying to stop him, and then he's like no hope. Obviously, he got smashed on, and then just DeAndre Jordan's like just highly amused after that dunk, right? It was and maybe if I'd selected that image versus this team shot that I opted to go with, it sort of maybe it might have highlighted something like the Clippers were head and shoulders above everyone else in that era. Yeah, they were dominant. They were dominant, but dominant in the regular season doesn't mean anything unless you can sort of get the deal done, right? We talked about the 73-9 Warriors, but no ring. Cool, yeah, but no ring. You can't consider that team as the one of the greatest teams in NBA history without a ring. And because that is ultimately the pillar of success to be able to win those 16 games in the playoffs and finals and get a job done. And the Clippers, look, you're right though, before the Lob City era, what else would you pick here? You're going to some level of like picking Michael Olowokandi as a draft image and saying, hey, this is a bust, and they sucked at making picks, and this was a total failure. That the Clippers had been for decades. Um, yeah, it's a really interesting sort of franchise, and we've talked about a few of these fairly interesting franchises, and maybe how we sum it up is like the lack of care or interest that we have, at least from our perspective. Clearly, we don't go for these franchises. We're just NBA fans. That there's 30 teams out there. We've got our favorite team. There's probably maybe say 10 other teams that we really like what they do and the success that they had and some of the core moments that they had in NBA history and so on and so forth. But that leaves literally another 10 to 15 teams that we actually don't care about. Like we don't care about them. And the Clippers, besides this era, and even to a certain extent, what they're doing now, and I don't know, you might have a different opinion now, that even though they've got superstars on their roster, there's a level of you know disinterest to the greater NBA fan of what the Clippers are trying to do, and until they win, and that's the biggest narrative, right? It's like we talked about the Kings just before. Now they're getting back on the radar. If the Kings start to win a few playoff series, make a conference finals, maybe make a finals, who knows, right? Then now we're going to start to talk about Kings. Yeah, kids will start to buy Kings jerseys again, yeah, and so on and so forth, like they did in the '90s. But until that happens, the Clippers are sort of that sort of franchise.
I think there's two ways. really to the heart of a mainstream person. It's be incredibly viral for impressive plays. E.g., Ja Morant is quite popular with young players because he's just does some insane things. Or you have to win, right? So, I think about the two jerseys. Well, look, the two quick jerseys that come to mind: Steph Curry, right? Because just the dynasty that he's created with the Golden State Warriors over the last decade, and Ja Morant for the highlights. Obviously, there are other players that get jerseys as well. LeBron comes to mind. Um, but those two specifically, like that's the key, right? That's the key for your franchise. If you're able to get one of those two types of players, either one that contributes to championships for you or is a highlight player, then notice your franchise suddenly increase. And like the Warriors were able to evolve, right? They changed arenas because all this money was coming in from the revenue that you naturally get when everyone's buying your jerseys, everyone's offering you TV deals, everyone's paying ridiculous prices to go watch your games. You're making an extra 20 games per season because you're going to the finals so often. That's how you become popular. And so the Clippers are trying with the route of they're building a new arena, right? Backed by an owner that's just ridiculously rich. And they've got two high caliber players that unfortunately can never stay healthy. And the one weird thing for Clippers, and we've talked about it so many times, their what if is currently happening, and it's been happening for the last 4 years. What if these two stay healthy? The one time that they actually were both healthy, they choked it away in the bubble. Other than that, they've never both been healthy, right? That they're probably living their biggest what if. And I guarantee you, in a couple of years' time, if we revisited this segment, I might pick a picture of those two because that was as close as they came. Because funnily enough, this what if era is led to a Western Conference Finals, whereas the Lob City Clippers never got there.
This is Two Guys with Spare Time. I'm Faz, this is Nick. You're probably a basketball fan like us, so hopefully you can throw us an assist and giving our video a like and subscribing to our channel.
And if you got thoughts, feelings, or even some suggestions, please put them down in the comment section below. And thank you for using your spare time to watch us in our spare time.